What's up, guys, and welcome to the new channel. And today we are going to be building box calls. So turkey season's right around the corner, and I still like to use the old school box calls. Just love the way that they sound, and they are actually pretty easy to make. Plus, there is nothing better than calling in that big gobbler with a box call that you've made yourself. Let me show you how to do it. So there's several different woods that you can use to make a box call, but what I figured out to get the best sound just through trial and error is to use a softer wood for your box and then use a hardwood for your top. So for this call, I'm going to be using some reclaimed poplar. Again, don't judge a book by its cover. It looks pretty rough, but this poplar actually makes an awesome sound. So let's get some stock cut. All right, so this is what the inside of this poplar looks like. Again, don't judge a book by its cover. Some gorgeous stuff. Usually like to start out with my stock being around 2x2, and this material is almost 2 1/4. So by the time I clean up the tops and bottoms, I think it'll be perfect. Let's go ahead and get this cut down to size. So these are the profiles that I've just cut out, basically just copying one of my very first calls that I made. I like my boxes to be about 2 inches thick, and in this case, this box is 9 7/8 of an inch long. Now the length of the box, that's going to be up to you, whatever you're comfortable packing around in the woods. So since I want my length at 9 7/8, I'm going to go ahead and cut this whole block down to 9 7/8. And I like my boxes about 1 3/4 inches wide. And you can build them like this one where the base is essentially square, or you can build them like this where the base is tapered. Now you could actually get several boxes out of this board, and there's several different ways that you can actually cut your box. Since I'm going to be putting a 3-degree bevel on each side of this, you can do it at the table saw, you can do it on your bandsaw, or you can do it on the miter saw. And make sure to leave geese. Too bad goose season's out. But anyway, I'm going to put a 3-degree bevel on both sides of this, leaving it 1.5 inches on the widest face. So now that we have applied our taper, we have 1.5 inches at the top, but our material is still a little bit too thick. It is right at about 2 3/16. I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to 2. And since this material already has a taper to it, you could either put a rider board under this to bring it level, or you could hold just a little pressure against your fence and run it through that way. With the wide side up, I'm going to get some measurements on here for our pocket that we're going to make. Okay, and this is one of the most important parts for getting the sound. You want the walls to be pretty thin, and we'll get to that here in a little bit because we actually do some tuning. But I prefer my pocket to be about 1 inch in from the end and about 5 inches long. Now with the length of the pocket marked, let's go ahead and mark our center. Since this is 1.5 inches, we'll be marking 3/4 of an inch in. Then we'll just draw a straight line between those two marks. This is just going to give us something to line our bit up with. And there's several different ways that you can actually remove the material for this. Since this is just kind of a fun, kind of a hobby thing for me, I'm just going to be using a drill press. As long as it sounds good, it really doesn't matter what it looks like. What I've actually found is the prettier that it looks. So this is like one that I made with a cherry bottom and walnut and then a cherry top. Seems like the hardwoods on the hardwoods created more of a high-pitched sound instead of that high to low raspy. So yeah, so prettier is not always better. This thing's still going to look pretty cool because it's emerald poplar that's about 180 years old, something like that. So see if we can turn some 180-year-old material into a turkey call that will put some food on the table. Let's go ahead and get our holes cut out. And for this, I'm just going to be using a Forstner bit here. It's 1.25 inches. So it's going to be pretty tight. I should have left some extra meat here on the side. I'm going to be removing about 1 inch of material all the way down my mark. All right, so this is what we're left with. Actually, these little circle mark grooves, ridges on the side here really don't hurt much, but I'm gonna go ahead and clean these up a little bit. I'm just gonna use an oscillating tool with a finger sander on it, and we'll start cutting this to shape. And this is where my little jigs are going to come in. And again, these are just templates used from one of the first ones that I just kind of freehanded. I like the way that the handle fit my hand, so that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to use the bandsaw to cut out this profile, but really you could do this with a jigsaw. And then just clean it up with sandpaper. So I'll probably do a loose cut and then clean the rest up with sandpaper. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that you can add this inset handle part to your box, but I actually prefer to use a spindle sander just to get that arched look. So let me show you what I mean. And this is what we end up with. Not too bad as long as it sounds good, but we'll have to find that out. We'll be coming back to the spindle sander here in a minute just to cut some like sound grooves in here. But first, let's go ahead and get this arch. We want this flat top to actually have about 1/8 of an inch arch, with the highest point being in the very center. And to do that, I'm just going to freehand it on the belt sander. So I'm just going to start off by taking some material off of each one of these ends. Then I'm going to start like a rocking motion to create that arch. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So now with our little arch in there, let's go ahead and head back over to the spindle sander and cut some little sound grooves in here. So for this, we're only going to be needing about 1 inch, 1.25 inch sander. So we'll switch these out. These are the grooves. So now I'm just going to round over my edges here. Really don't want them completely flat like this is, but I'm just going to roughly round these over by hand. And whenever we get to tuning this, then maybe we'll have to take off a little bit more. Now I'm just going to take a top off of one that I've already made just to kind of see where we're at. Should be able to tell. It's not going to sound good, but should be able to tell if we need to remove any more material from the inside. I don't even have it attached. I'm just holding it with my finger here. We can work with that. It's a little sharp. Yeah, we can definitely work with that. So shouldn't have a whole lot more to do to the box. The rest of the tuning is going to be with the tightness of the top with the screw. So let's go and get this top made. Ready for some turkey. Okay, so for the tops, they're going to end up being right around 3/8 of an inch thick. I made them thinner before. Didn't like the way that they felt. The good thing about using poplar as a base is it's super light. And using a hardwood like cherry for this, it's a little bit heavier, so it's going to give it a nice sound. So for the top, I always like mine a little bit wider than the base. So since my base is 1.5 inches, my top's going to be 1 5/8 inches. Since I want the length of my top to match the box, my stock is already cut to 9 3/4 wide. Although this piece is super thick, we needed a completely rounded edge on the inside of this. And to put that rounded edge on, I'm going to be using the sander. So instead of trying to hold that 3/8 of an inch piece and doing this and ending up sanding off your fingerprints like I have 100 times, like honestly, I could probably get away with any crime. But I've learned to use larger blocks. That way I can rotate it without it chewing my fingers off. Once I get my arch the way that I want it, then I can go ahead and rip this down to 3/8. let's go ahead and get that done. So again, I'm going to be using cherry for this, and let's go ahead and get an arch put on. So now that we have our arch, let's go ahead and get that ripped down on the bandsaw. Okay, so with our top cut out, you can either do the exact same thing that we did with the spindle sander, just for, you know, cutting these little grooves in for the handle, or you have the template, you can go ahead and just lay the template on top, just like this, and trace it out. Since we have it here, let's go ahead and trace it out. It'll give us a rough idea of how we want it to look. So, back to the sander. So this is where we're at right now. Oh, looking good. Thing's hot. It's ready to start calling. There's no chalk. It's gonna be a good one. Let's go ahead and get these things sanded up and put together. Okay, so to attach our striker or our lid here to our box, I'm just going to line everything up the way that I would like it. What kind of feels good. I'll throw a rubber band on this, just kind of help hold everything in place. I'm going to measure 1/2 inch down and center. Now with that marked, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill this, and then I'll counterbore the top. Okay, so we're almost done here. So the screw that I use, you can pretty much use any type of screw. I just like them to kind of be inset, but right now it is completely tight and sits in there nicely. So I'm going to loosen this up a little bit, and you can actually put a spring in here if you would like. If you're going to do that, that's all that you would do, is just counterbore a place to hold the spring. But a lot of times you don't even need that. Let's throw a little chalk on this just to see what it's going to sound like. This is our box. And if you have a laser engraver or anything like that, you can put whatever you want on top, but turkeys really aren't going to care. Let's go ahead and throw a little chalk on here. Now we can fine tune it. All right, so it needs a little work there. Typically, the tighter that you tighten the screw, the higher pitch that you're going to get. And then if you can't find a sweet spot, yeah, I like that. It's that aftertone that you want. So you have that real sharp, then as it draws out, it almost kind of lingers a little bit. So still needs a little bit of tuning, a little bit of work. I'm going to do some more sanding on the inside of this just to try to get that sound just right. But other than that, it's pretty much ready for some finish. I like to use like an oil-based finish just on the outside of this. Just whatever you do, make sure not to get the oils on the edges here, because it's going to change the pitch, change the sound. And don't put anything on the bottom of this striker. I don't like to use it. Completely changes the sound. But and then you'll probably have to retune it once you get the oils just on the rest of the call itself. So anyway, tuning it's easy. So that's how easy it is to make a box call. Let's go ahead and get a finish on this and tune it a little bit more. There's those colors coming out. It's gorgeous wood. You can see I've just put some tape on the top edges there. If you do get a little bit on the top edges, no big deal. Just kind of sand it off before it soaks in too deep. But that's it. We just need to protect it from the elements, because everybody knows a little bit of rain's not going to stop you from turkey hunting. And there we have it. Beautiful, handmade, super easy. You can totally do this. If you pop a turkey using a call that you've made, there's nothing like it. So see what it sounds like. Still needs a little bit of tuning, I think. Maybe just a little bit there on the inside, but sounds pretty good. There's no spring in the back. And I made that in probably 45 minutes just out of material that I had laying around. So I think that it sounds good. I know there's probably going to be a ton of comments of people saying, oh, that sounds like crap, but it really doesn't matter what I think sounds good or you think that sounds good. It's if the turkey thinks that it sounds good. And turkey season's this weekend, so I'm about to find out. I'll let you know.